So I'm gonna do the quick intro. Kate is, I met Kate at a community capital conference in Detroit. Was it last year? Yeah, it was last year. And then at the Esalen Burning Man conference. And to me, she's doing a really prime model of self-organizing, where she's it's a model of how do when you talk about like how do you apply the 10 principles beyond Burning Man, and how do you get people to co-create their own place? And to me, what Kate's doing is a really fantastic example of like where people literally get to design or define, govern, and co-own a vision of what they want to see happen in their neighborhood. So I'm really glad she's here, and I'll let you take go ahead.
Sure. I really am passionate about how we build the places we live in affects how we interact with our neighbors and how we live our lives and the choices we make. And, a lot of the choices we all make are by what's around us and what's easy to do. And we don't even think about how much just what are the buildings on our street affects what we eat or drink or do that day. And a lot of our buildings, especially in northern Michigan where I live, look like this. They're built by developers. And the idea is just, well, what is a stable tenant that is going to make money? And there's a lot of Dollar Generals and payroll cash advances and a lot of, I don't know if you call them ugly buildings, but buildings that look like this. And we started working on what would happen if communities were designing and building and had a voice in what was being built in their communities. What would you want to do in your community? What would you and your neighbors design and want to build? And of course, this is just a silly graphic, but I really like how there's a slide coming out of the building. So we started a Common Grounds cooperative, and the idea was, okay, how will we build a building that improves quality of life for people in the neighborhood, and what would the people that live here want to see here? Our community has a lot of growth pressure, and we're a big tourist destination, so it's a lot of high-end condos that are second homes to people, and t-shirt shops and high-end women's boutiques and things that aren't really serving the people that work and live here. So why would we want to do this, have this community-owned real estate cooperative? Well, it's a way for people to participate in what's happening and what's being built in their community. I really like the term social infrastructure, which is what I was talking about. How do we design the buildings around us that help us create social networks that are stronger? And help us support healthier systems, whether that's around education or family or arts or health, but help us support organizations and people that are doing things that are long-term sustainable, that are regenerative instead of exploitive. And how do we allow everyone to invest their social and their intellectual and their financial capital in a way that generates more capital for everyone? So our cooperative, we designed a specific building, and we went to our community and said, all right, who wants to become an owner of this future building? And people could become an owner for $50. And then we went to those owners and raised money as an investment. So we'll repay people back at 7% a year for 10 years. And we raised $1.4 million that way. And the building we have is a 4-story building. It's a $14.5 million project altogether. It has workforce housing. We have a big early childhood education shortage in our community, so it has early childhood care and also a family center. Craft food and beverages. It has a food hall that is a space to incubate food entrepreneurs. We have a small performing arts space for both performances and classes, and then shared work and co-working space basically for nonprofits and business. And the building's really focused on supporting multimodal transportation, so a big emphasis on encouraging people to bike or walk or bus around the community into the building. And we are, well, we were on good track to break ground this summer. I hope that we still are, although we'll see what emerges from the coronavirus period and the instability around that. We've been working with primary lenders. We have some money coming in from the state, and we got a great group of tenants that are planning to move into the building that will also own their spaces. And we have about a $250,000 gap. So that's what I'm working on now, is just fundraising that amount, which out of the $14.5 million is not that much, but it's the piece that I'm working on. But I think that for the themes that this group is talking about, I think there's both creating a way for people to feel ownership and participation in what's happening in their community, which a lot of people feel pretty powerless to. How would you even start to affect what's being built next door? And this creates an on-ramp for people to do that. But it also creates a way for us to do more than just build buildings that Dollar General can can pay for. It allows us to think more, how do we create spaces that really become places where people interact and develop different types of relationships and different types of communities and learn different behaviors from each other and learn from what other people are doing. I love the phrase adjacent possible, which it sounded like maybe Jordan Hall used it in his talk, just barely cut off. But it's the idea that the rate at which we grow or innovate depends on what is adjacent to us. And if we want to increase people's ability to grow, we increase the ideas and people that they're exposed to. And so creating spaces that help all of us interact with people that are different than us and that intentionally invite in and curate those relationships.
Great. Thank you, Kate. By the way, yeah, and I see it as a hub for lots of, not literal, but, virtual figurative campfires. Does anyone have any quick questions for Kate? Well,
I'm curious, Kate, where in the world you're doing this right now?
I'm in Traverse City in northern Michigan. I actually was just in Banff the last week of February.
Oh, wow, that's
my first
awesome.
trip there. It was wonderful.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing. I'm really, I just feel really lucky that I got to hear you share that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm really excited about that idea. I just recently, I think it was just yesterday or the day before, I drove past a plaza in my neighborhood, and I just really was questioning, what I was like, what do we have in our neighborhood to be, proud of? Like, do we have it'd be awesome if we had not necessarily a blacksmith, but like a really really wonderful bakery or something that really we could value, any business that we could really value in our neighborhood, and instead of a strip plaza that really, didn't have anything that we could connect with. So this idea was really exciting for me. How can I find more information about it?
Our website is www.commongrounds.coop, but I'd also be glad to talk more, share more information. Anything I have, I'm glad to share. So I'm sure Neil will share everyone's contact info.
For everyone's projects, and then we'll definitely in the Radical Catalyst Club WhatsApp group, and there's also a counterpart Slack group, and in that Slack account we actually are keeping track of these projects. So just stick in the WhatsApp group, and we'll get you to the Slack group, and then we'll get you to the channels that are actually keeping track of each of these projects, so that you can really see what's going on in each of these projects, and on the bigger ideas of things like community ownership and crowd investing and Catalyst hubs. So yeah.
And specifically, can you share what you mentioned we're in the last phase of financing or extra financing. Can you share very specifically what are you looking for right now to grow this, or what's your step, what you need, and what are you able to give, like share that information, for example, in the community, and what are you committed to do? Would that work for you to say something about that, Kate?
Sure. Well, for what I have to give, I'm absolutely glad to share. I'm a lawyer by training, so I did a lot of the work on the legal and financial structure. And so any tools we have around, the cooperative bylaws and articles, and how we did the investment crowdfunding, and how we set the classes of ownership within the building, and how we're doing governance, and how people are going to vote, how they're electing the board, what tax status, all that kind of stuff. I'm glad to share what I've got and also help brainstorm around other projects you might be working on. For our project, we're using the capital we raised for the community as our equity to leverage the bank loan that we need. And so we raised 1.4 million, and really we needed about 2 million. And we raised, which 1.4 million way exceeded what I was hoping to raise from the community. I mean, I was thrilled with that. It's such a new investment crowdfunding, such a new thing to people, and to invest in a building that they can't even see. I mean, it's incredible what we got people to invest. But so we've been just working with other, more traditional investors to say, okay, do you want to, people can purchase a space in the building and then rent it to a nonprofit that they care about what they're doing. We can take investment in the land still. So we bought the land and we still have some of that money we'll be paying back. So that's the piece that we're still looking for. And that's kind of the final piece that leverages that other $14 million of funding that we have between the community capital and the bank loan, and then some low interest loan and grant money from the state of Michigan. And then, sorry, what was the last piece?
Well, what are you committed to do? I guess you are committed to.
Well, what was your specific need?
Yeah.
Which you kind of stated.
Right. Yeah. Help with money, please. But I mean, also this is obviously an experiment and we're learning as we go. And a lot of the piece, we've sort of had this group of tenants and we've co-created with the community, but we really talk about, we have the building, but then we also have what's happening inside the building and how are we allowing people to continue to participate in as the building is built and when it exists and how it's operating and how we're making sure that we're incorporating the community and the owners and all the relevant stakeholders into what we're doing. And so also just learning from what you guys are doing and how do we set up these structures to help facilitate inclusive stakeholding, and how do we communicate that, and what sort of tools do people need to, that help people individually learn and grow to be ready to participate in those types of relationships with their neighbors too.
Great. Thanks, Kate.